The Hellion Prime Trade Summit began with the usual orchestration of ceremony, drifting banners in a dozen languages, drifting merchant skiffs, and diplomats weaving through a plaza of Silverstone towers. For a brief moment, the galaxy felt stable. Then the first antimatter blast tore open the eastern district. A second shockwave followed instantly, rolling across the city as a pale blue sphere that hollowed streets and turned entire blocks into vapor. The alarms that should have thundered across the planet never finished their opening note. Communication towers melted in the rising energy bloom. Within minutes, 9 million lives were erased. What survived was a single thread of encrypted footage that spread faster than emergency beacons. The recording showed Terran warships, sleek, angular hulls carrying obsolete marks, descending through the atmosphere before releasing antimatter charges and vanishing through a micro-wormhole. The final frame displayed the emblem of Earth's Terran fleet. It was unmistakable. It was also a lie. Commander Alex Ryan watched the same footage from the command deck of the TFS Nemesis as the data packet decoded in front of him. The hollow ache that settled in his chest wasn't shock but recognition. "That hull geometry is over 200 years out of service," he muttered. "Engine signatures don't even match current reactors." His second officer, Lieutenant Mara Vance, leaned closer. "The Council accepted it within 10 minutes. They're meeting now." Ryan replayed the clip, halting it on a frame where the warship distractedly flickered, an artifact no genuine recording should display. Someone had overwritten the truth with extraordinary precision. Yet the moment he saw it, the familiar heaviness behind his ribs returned, the same weight he felt the day his younger sister died in the Juno Station pirate assault. That day had carved a permanent wound in him. This one deepened it. "Open secure channel to Fleet Command," he said. "They'll need a full forensic breakdown." Before the request left the terminal, another alert flashed. "Council performs emergency vote. Terran aggression confirmed. Sanctions initiated." Ryan stared at the text, unable to reconcile the speed of the decision with the scale of the tragedy. Facts were already buried beneath public outrage. The next hours unraveled with ruthless momentum. Several species announced withdrawal of trade with humanity. Others demanded Earth's immediate disarmament. In the council chamber, a chaotic stream of representatives railed against Terran savagery, their voices rising above one another until the feed collapsed under bandwidth strain. Ryan left the bridge and entered a small observation deck where no one followed. Through the viewport, Mars glowed red beneath spiraling ship traffic. He steadied his breath, but the casualty list projected above his wrist terminal made it tremble again. Near the top was a name, Lyra Kess, a child not even 10 years old. The image of her reminded him sharply of his sister, a wide-eyed brightness now extinguished. He shut the window gently, jaw tightening. Siren, the Nemesis's artificial intelligence, materialized as a faint blue silhouette beside him. "Commander, I've analyzed the attack recording. Embedded in the file are Dominion quantum markers, very faint, intentionally obscured." "Voris," Ryan said quietly. "Probability of involvement, 87%. That was enough. High Strategos Zerkal Voris of the Drakari Dominion had spent decades maneuvering himself into a grip on half the frontier. Creating a false flag attack wasn't beyond him. It was exactly the sort of machination he would design. The Council's ultimatum arrived moments later. Earth must disarm all frontline fleets and surrender key commanders for trial, or face enforced neutralization. It was accompanied by a broadcast from Voris himself, delivered with deliberate calm. "The Terran species has demonstrated catastrophic irresponsibility," he declared. "For the safety of all civilized worlds, they must be removed from positions of military influence." Ryan watched the message end with a sickening finality. "Convenient," he murmured. "He calls for our surrender before anyone even investigates." Lieutenant Vance approached. "Fleet Command wants your assessment. The President refused the ultimatum." "Of course she did," Ryan said. "Because she's not insane." He returned to the operations room. The air hummed with tension as commanders from multiple systems filled the holotable. The Terran president's voice joined them through a secure link. "We did not attack Helion," she said, composed but resolute. "We grieve for the lost, but we will not kneel before fabricated evidence. Prepare defensive positions. Ryan, assemble a task group for border reinforcement." "Yes, ma'am." As the meeting ended, the table dissolved into fragments of tactical data. Alien fleets were already massing near human borders. Several colonies reported unidentified vessels hovering near wormhole gates. The frontier was collapsing into panic. "This happened too fast," Vance said. "They were waiting." Ryan nodded. "Because this wasn't a reaction. It was a setup." Hours later, a hidden transmission from the moon's core facilities flashed across the Nemesis's main screen. Massive sealed doors, untouched for centuries, slid open to reveal corridors of dormant superdreadnoughts, ancient Terran relics built long before modern fleets existed. Humanity had buried them after their last great war, hoping never to awaken them again. "Ancient fleet activation?" Vance whispered. "We're really going that far?" "We don't have a choice," Ryan answered. "If they're preparing to crush us, we need every asset we've ever built." Meanwhile, in the icy depths of Dominion territory, High Strategos Voris watched the chaos unfold from his citadel. His lieutenants delivered reports with stiff precision. "Council support is firm," one said. "Most species have condemned humanity. Their fleets are stretched thin." "Good," Voris replied. "Keep pressure on the border. Once the Terrans fall, we'll integrate their space into the Dominion." His eyes glowed with a predatory satisfaction. "They should have stayed isolated. Now we will break them publicly." Back on the Nemesis, Ryan stood on the bridge as emergency lights traced across Mars' orbit. More human ships departed dockyards every minute, their engines forming lines of white fire against the void. "Commander," Siren said, "alien vessels are entering the Arden sector. Estimated assault within 20 hours. "Understood." Ryan watched the starfield shift as the Nemesis aligned for departure. He felt the weight of what was coming, the war they didn't start but would now have to survive. He exhaled slowly. "If they want a war," he said, voice low but unwavering, "we'll show them one." The Nemesis dropped out of warp above Arden, emerging into a system already drowning in alarms. 3 Dominion cruisers circled the colony moon, their cannons carving molten trails across its industrial belt. The local defense grid struggled to fire, half its relays severed by the opening barrage. Civilian transports drifted in disarray as evacuation protocols faltered under the sudden assault. Lieutenant Vance stood beside Commander Ryan, eyes locked on the tactical holo. 3 primary assault wings. No ground invasion yet. They're softening infrastructure. Ryan took a breath, analyzing the pattern of strikes. They're after satellites, comm relays, anything that isolates the colony. They want Arden blind. "Orders?" she asked. "Cut their eyes first." The Nemesis surged forward, engines roaring like a drawn blade across the void. Human drone swarms launched from its hangars, thousands of metallic spheres that immediately formed shifting lattices around the ship. Each one ran adaptive combat algorithms built to counter Dominion tactics. The alien cruisers reacted too slowly. Within seconds, the swarms shredded their shields in a flurry of coordinated strikes. "Targeting array locked," Vance said. "Fire." The Nemesis unleashed a pair of kinetic spears. The projectiles punched through 2 cruisers with surgical precision, splitting their hulls and sending fragments scattering across orbit. The 3rd cruiser attempted to retreat behind Arden's shadow, but Ryan anticipated the maneuver. "Predictive arc, 20 degrees starboard. Hit them before they hide." The final shot tore through the cruiser's engine block. Flames vented from ruptured chambers before the vessel collapsed inward and dimmed. Arden was safe, for the moment. But the victory brought no celebration. More distress calls streamed in from Valeries and Terra. The Dominion wasn't probing human borders. They were launching a coordinated assault across multiple systems. Ryan signaled engineering. "Prep for another warp. We don't pause." Before the team initiated jump, Siren appeared beside the tactical display. Commander, I've intercepted encrypted chatter from the Dominion fleet. They're forwarding additional reinforcements to Helion's orbit. They're trying to suffocate any independent investigation. So the lie keeps growing, Ryan murmured. We need proof strong enough to shatter their narrative. He remembered the doctored footage, the markers hidden within, and the child Lyra's name on the casualty list. Emotion didn't hinder him, it sharpened him. Someone had arranged this war with meticulous cruelty, and Ryan would expose the architect. The Nemesis jumped again, this time into Valeries, where several human frigates held a thin defensive line against a swarm of lighter Dominion skiffs. The aliens attempted overwhelming numbers, but human targeting AI adjusted instantly, intercepting volleys before they reached critical range. As the Nemesis entered formation, Captain Darius of the frigate Horizon appeared on the comm. We're glad to see you, Commander. They came in waves. We held, but we're running low on countermeasures. You'll get relief, Ryan replied. We end this push here. With coordinated precision, human vessels locked into a spiral formation, an old Terran tactic known as horizon trapping. By compressing the enemy ships inside a tightening gravitic funnel, Ryan forced the Dominion skiffs into predictable escape vectors. One by one, they were eliminated. Within an hour, Valeries was clear. Ryan's crew exhaled quietly, though exhaustion etched itself across their faces. He didn't give them false comfort. We're not done, he said. Terra still needs us. But before the next jump, the Council broadcast emerged across every channel. A holographic envoy, Tashmir, faced the galaxy with a look of heavy resignation. Despite the Terran fleet's claims, he announced, we have further evidence suggesting human duplicity. Earlier today, a Terran diplomatic convoy was destroyed by their own ships. Footage followed, human warships firing on unarmed Terran vessels. Vance stared as the video replayed. Impossible. Those IDs were retired decades ago. They're using museum models. Ryan leaned closer. The clip contained similar distortions as the Hellion footage, subtle flickers, mismatched engine flare geometry. They're doubling down, he said. The Dominion wants us branded unstable before we expose anything. As the broadcast ended, Siren blinked into view. I've uncovered an encrypted Dominion relay hidden beneath Helion's trade network. It transmitted data 2 hours before the attack. The signal leads toward a remote Dominion station on the frontier. Ryan's eyes narrowed. Coordinates. Sent. This evidence was the missing thread. If he could access that relay's logs, they might reveal the origin of the false flag operation. Prepare a covert jump, Ryan said. We'll retrieve whatever they tried to bury. Before they jumped, he addressed the crew. They want to isolate us and bury the truth. We're not letting them. Today we defend our people. Tomorrow we expose the hand behind this war. The Nemesis blinked out of Valeries and reappeared in an uncharted sector marked only by drifting asteroids. A Dominion relay station sat hidden between two fractured planetoids, its dark metallic surface absorbing ambient light. No patrols circled it. They thought secrecy was enough, Vance whispered. Ryan led a strike team into the dropship. They boarded the silent structure with weapons drawn, navigating tight corridors lit with intermittent emergency strips. Dominion glyphs flickered across malfunctioning panels. Inside the central control chamber, Siren interfaced with the main terminal. The data is archived but shielded. Attempting to decrypt. Moments passed. The lights dimmed as the system fought the intrusion. Ryan watched the door, sensing the tension rising behind every shadow. Finally, Siren spoke. Logs recovered. They contain pre-attack planning directives. Voris gave explicit orders to mimic Terran engines in the Hellion assault. Vance exhaled. This proves everything. Copy it all, Ryan said. We make this public. But before they retreated, Siren displayed one final transmission, a video of Voris addressing his commanders. The Council will condemn Earth before sunrise, Voris declared. Once the Terrans are isolated, we crush their fleets and secure the frontier. Ryan stared at the hologram. He played the entire galaxy, As the team boarded their ship, the Dominion station shuddered, self-destruct primed. They escaped moments before a cascade of explosions tore the structure apart. Back aboard the Nemesis, Ryan issued orders. Transmit everything to Fleet Command. Prepare a fleet muster at the shattered corridor. If Voris wants a decisive war, he'll face humanity at full strength. A final alert flashed across the bridge. TFS Leviathan had completed initial activation. Rumors of its awakening spread through human space, bolstering morale. Ryan stood at the viewport as jump coordinates aligned. Stars stretched into luminous threads. A war forced upon humanity had become something else, a reckoning. He whispered. They wanted us cornered. Now they'll see what corners create. The Nemesis vanished into warp. The shattered corridor stretched ahead like a graveyard of civilizations, broken planets, drifting rings, and the skeletal remains of ancient fortresses suspended in cold silence. Commander Ryan stood at the bridge window of the Nemesis as the fleet decelerated into the region. One by one, Terran vessels emerged from warp in brilliant cascades of blue, destroyers, carriers, siege cruisers, and at the center of it all, a giant eclipsing the void. TFS Leviathan. The dreadnought moved with the slow confidence of something that had once ended wars alone. Its armor was layered with obsidian plating etched with lines of old Terran script. Its primary weapon, a star lance cannon dormant for centuries, pulsed faintly as though waking from a long sleep. Vance stared at the monstrous silhouette. Hard to believe we built that. Ryan nodded. Ancestors built it because they knew a day like this could come again. A cluster of red signatures appeared on tactical display, Dominion ships emerging across the far edge of the corridor. Their numbers climbed rapidly. Hundreds. Then thousands. A mosaic of warships that stretched across sectors. Siren projected the data. Dominion Armada configured in full siege formation. Voris appears to be leading them personally. A grainy visual from a distant probe confirmed it. Voris Command Citadel, a massive mobile fortress embedded in an asteroid, drifted behind the enemy lines like a dark crown. They're bringing everything, Vance whispered. That makes this simpler, Ryan replied. The Nemesis vibrated slightly as Terran fighters launched from its hangars. The fleet spread into formation, aligning arcs and trajectories with exact precision. The Leviathan positioned itself at the center line, its shadow cutting across the battlefield like a declaration. A transmission cut through the noise, Voris, addressing them directly. Terran Commander, he said, voice smooth but edged with venom. I had hoped you would surrender quietly. Instead, you force me to demonstrate your species' limits. Ryan stepped forward. You murdered millions and forged evidence to trap us in your war. Today, the truth reaches the galaxy. Voris tilted his head. Truth is irrelevant when power decides outcomes. You cannot win here. We'll see, Ryan said, and cut the channel. The battlefield erupted. Dominion ships surged forward in coordinated waves, their cannons flashing streaks of violet and crimson. Terran vessels responded instantly, releasing adaptive drone swarms that formed shifting walls of kinetic fire. Explosions dotted the corridor as the first lines collided, turning the void into a storm of debris and plasma. Leviathan weapon charging, engineering reported. Ryan watched the energy build inside the dreadnought's core, a gathering brilliance that intensified with each passing second. The Dominion Armada attempted to divert, but their formations were too committed. Fire, Ryan said. The Leviathan answered with a blinding beam of white energy that tore across the battlefield like a spear of condensed starlight. Hundreds of Dominion ships vanished in a single sweeping arc. Their remains drifted outward in glowing fragments. The shock rippled across enemy lines. For the first time, the Dominion faltered. Siren's voice held a sharp clarity. Strategic advantage achieved. But Voris is shifting to flanking tactics. Ryan anticipated it. All ships rotate formation. Keep our core secure. The battle stretched across hours. Terran ships adapted continuously, countering every maneuver with strategies derived from centuries of tactical archives. Dominion officers, unprepared for the flexibility of human designs, lost coherence. Entire wings collapsed under coordinated Terran strikes. But Voris still commanded from the shadows of his citadel, launching fresh waves with relentless determination. "Commander," Vance said, "we're receiving civilian distress signals from the outer colonies. Dominion raiders are splitting away. They're targeting civilians to force us back," Ryan said. "We can't let them scatter the fleet." He focused on the citadel. "We end this at the source." The Nemesis detached from the Terran formation and accelerated toward the asteroid fortress. A strike team assembled in the hangar, elite soldiers equipped with stealth exosuits, kinetic rifles, and shielded grapples. Ryan strapped on his gear in silence. Vance caught his arm. "You should let someone else lead this." "This started with his manipulation," Ryan said. "I finish it." Moments later, the dropship launched and descended through clusters of debris drifting around the citadel. Automated turrets fired streams of plasma, but the Nemesis suppressed them with precise blasts, clearing a path. The strike team cut into the fortress hull and moved through dim metallic corridors, stepping over Dominion bodies felled by the earlier bombardment. The interior hummed with alarms, glyphs flickering across cracked walls. Deep within the citadel, the command chamber opened like a vast hollow carved into the asteroid's core. Voris stood at its center surrounded by holographic projections of the failing battlefield. He turned as Ryan entered. "You continue to be an inconvenience. You orchestrated genocide," Ryan said. "Now the galaxy knows." "Ah, the data leak," Voris replied, expression chillingly calm. "A calculated risk. But not fatal. It ends here," Ryan said. Voris extended his claws and lunged. The two collided in a burst of force, exchanging strikes that echoed through the chamber. Ryan's armor absorbed the first blow, but the second tore through his shoulder plate. Pain flared, but he forced it down and countered with a precise strike that staggered the strategos. "You cling to sentiment," Voris hissed. "It makes you weak." Ryan wiped blood from his lip. "It makes us human." They clashed again, Ryan pushing Voris back toward the central console. With a final surge, he drove the strategos into the control dais. Sparks erupted as the structure shattered, and Voris collapsed. Ryan stepped back as the massive citadel trembled. Dominion systems were failing. On the main display, Terran fleets had fully broken the enemy lines. Dominion ships were surrendering across multiple sectors. The war Voris engineered had turned against him completely. Vance's voice came through Ryan's comms. "Commander, Dominion command is collapsing. Their fleets are signaling ceasefire. Broadcast the evidence galaxy-wide," Ryan said. "Let everyone see who caused this." As the citadel crumbled, Ryan returned with his team to the dropship. They escaped just before the fortress detonated in a silent burst of fragmented rock and fire. On the Nemesis bridge, he watched the last Dominion vessels power down. Human ships held formation, stabilizing the corridor. For the first time since Helion Prime, there was quiet. Vance approached softly. "It's over." Ryan took a steady breath. "No. Now we rebuild what they destroyed." From Earth to the frontier, transmissions carried the truth, Voris' confession, the false flag operation, the manipulation that ignited the war. The Council collapsed into chaos as member states demanded accountability. Humanity emerged not as a villain but as a force that had endured the worst and answered with unyielding resolve. The Leviathan's engines dimmed as it prepared to return home. Ryan watched the distant glow of Earth on the star map, a small, determined world that refused to break. "They dragged us into their war," he whispered. "Now the galaxy knows who we are." And the Nemesis turned toward home.